Welcome, everyone, to this episode of Build America, the construction industry podcast that's capturing the very heartbeat of construction, development, design, and talent acquisition, which is our topic and our theme for the month of July. We're excited that you're listening today because we have two bright minds and experts in the field of talent acquisition and retention, and they are with a firm called AllSearch Recruiting. And we have with us today Pete Wisnom, who is the Director of Recruiting for AllSearch, and Kyle Hullmann, who is the Director of Business Development. And Kyle and Pete, we're so glad that you're joining us today on Build America. Thanks so much for stopping in.
Yes, thank you for hosting us, Kerry. We're excited.
Thank you. Yeah, excited to be here. Thank you.
Oh, you're quite welcome. Let's dive right in. I know our topic that we picked for this episode is challenges in construction recruiting. Not that there are any. I'm sure we could go on for hours. So I thought today we might talk about, narrow it down to two challenges. One being the demographic shifts in population and how that's impacting the construction workforce. And then the second one that I chose for you guys is just insights on counteroffers, salary offers, benefits packages, what's working and maybe what isn't to bring the best and brightest to construction companies. But if we want, let's dive into the demographic question, if that's okay. And I'm sure a lot of us, even on the outside looking in, are familiar with what's been happening before and since COVID with older professionals aging out and Gen Zs and others coming in. But what overall high level are you guys seeing and have been seeing in terms of specifically in construction industry and engineering and all that, just in terms of demographic shifts?
Great question. Yes, it's been something we've had to evolve with as well in terms of handling our candidates and clients. And obviously, we do have sort of an aging workforce in the construction industry. And you couple that with the sort of slowing birth rates, and that really leads to fewer potential employees to fill those critical voids in the construction industry as some folks retire. And I think the biggest challenges that we have faced over the last few years are roles like estimators and PMs and superintendents. Those folks are just becoming more and more scarce in the marketplace and simultaneously in higher and higher demand. And so that's created a really strange sort of imbalance. It's made it hard for current employers to retain their employees because those folks are in such high demand and are getting hit up for new employment opportunities over and over. But then it also has put hiring companies in a position of how do we figure out how to entice and attract skilled professionals in these disciplines, because there aren't very many. And there's a new breed of professional that's entering the workforce that has different priorities, different expectations, different things that they value in their career or in their personal life that may go against the grain of what has been conventional for many years in the construction industry. And we've just been riding this balance and trying to figure it out as a staff recruiting firm for years.
Yeah, I can't imagine it, of all the generational times, this has to be one of the most dramatic shifts within a certain number of years. Would you say, if you looking back before all of us were working, but in terms of the past century, I would think this is a real flux time to be in.
The birth rate declination is just such an impact here. I think looking at some of the projections out there by the AGC and other organizations, there's a 300 to 500,000 employee per year difference of what we need to hire to maintain the active workforce and what we're losing due to retirement or other causes there. So nothing's going to bridge that gap. There's not going to be more people born all of a sudden that are able to, of working age and of the experience levels. And that's the other thing as well. We're not just losing bodies to retirement and exiting industry. We're also losing all of that experience. And we have to figure out how to transfer that effectively to the next generation that has, as Pete mentioned, some different priorities, maybe different ways of learning, or much more technology forward. And that's a bridge that these employers need to find how to, or the gap that employers need how to bridge.
Yeah, definitely.
Couple that with the fact that certainly the construction industry is not slowing down. And so there's higher demand, so fewer employees, higher demand. That means that there's more pressure, more burden on the employees that are in place. And yet there's also this cultural shift that is leaning more into, no, I want a better work-life balance. I don't want to work 80 hours a week. I want to spend time with my kids, all these things. And I think across the board, it's really challenging for both the employee and the employer to come to a solution to that.
Yeah, I was thinking particularly in construction where, not that other industries wouldn't be at a loss to lose people, but what if you've been awarded a $1 billion mega project and you're in the middle of the project? It's not like you can just stop the project and onboard people for a couple months. Talk to that a little bit. It's got to be a unique industry, construction, where it's so safety driven, but the compressed time you have to even bring people on.
Factoring that in there, projects are stopping or projects aren't launching. And this is going to tie to that other topic as far as counteroffers go. With that too, where you're going to throw money at an individual to make sure the project's up and running, and then you're going to reevaluate once that project's completed. But it can have major impacts on timelines, on deadlines, on cost of the project, the full scope, and then it can have a trickle effect on organizations as well, of other employees having to carry that load. Now they're working, as P mentioned, 80 to 100 hours a week, and that gets old too. So now they're looking somewhere else too. And again, it's a domino effect sometimes when just one individual retires or leaves in the middle of a large scale project.
We're dealing with, layered onto that right now, is some of the political turmoil and tariffs and the economy and everything, and even just government projects. And obviously that's such a major part of what the construction industry is made up of. We have clients right now where we're taking on some risk by working with them currently, but like we're trying to staff for projects that haven't even been won yet. And we don't even have assurances that they're going to go through because of everything going on governmentally. And we as a staffing firm even are having to take on some risk and figure out, we'll spend some time and hope that it plays out. But I think there's a lot of uncertainty all the way across the board. On the plus side, there seems to be also just construction seems to be doing very well right now. We're booming. Our construction practice is overwhelmed currently. We're also having staffing issues with that. Trying to have enough personnel to support the demand in construction. So
I was trying to just let it sink in what you said, Pete, about staffing up for projects that haven't been awarded, because that makes total sense to me as somebody writes about projects, because especially like these data centers and the warehouses and the expedited, well, even hospitality, that industry coming back, and just the accelerated expedited expectations that the owners have.
Yes, absolutely. It's a challenge.
For sure. Well, segueing into that from the demographic shift, Kyle, you said that is a natural transition into how do you do that? What does it look like? And I'm sure it's different for every role, every person, but when it gets into the nitty gritty of making the offer, how do you do that? Maybe do we want to take a specific role like an estimator or one of those that's just really in short supply? How does that negotiating piece work, and what kind of condensed window does that take place in? Is it days, hours, weeks?
Yeah, so every circumstance is different because every employer is different, every candidate, and that's the fun thing. A project is a project, but people have emotions, they have health, they have outside influences, whatever the case may be. So every circumstance is a little bit different. And timeline is typically, I would say, when an offer is extended, typically a few days as far as for the individual to consider. And that's where, as a search firm that's engaging with the candidate, helping to guide them through the process while also working with the employer, we want to make sure it's the right fit. We want to make sure that they're having the time to truly evaluate the opportunity, make sure it's the right move for them. And that also these employees are not moving more for a couple dollars more an hour or whatever the case may be. It's more so that what's their motivation for a move, whether career trajectory, work-life balance, and then the employer's understanding that. So it's really about connecting the dots in terms of what's missing in the employee and then what the employer can offer in terms of the employee experience.
Yeah, tell me again. So what's missing in the employee, and then what the employer can offer?
Sure. So it could be leadership, it could be lack of advancement, it could be, again, work-life balance, fringe benefits, medical, dental, whatever the case may be there, depending on what the employer is offering. And again, I think open communications with your future employee to get an understanding of what they're truly looking for and how your organization can meet those needs. It's so much more than just skill. Qualified skill meets qualified skill. It needs to be about the person too and the organization, and for it to be a successful long-term fit.
it costs an awful lot to hire somebody, doesn't it?
Retraining, especially in the middle of a project. Yes, you don't have time for it.
I think that's everything. Is that personalized interview process is the foundation of all of it. Like Kyle touched on, we preach this to our recruiters, and I think one of the major values that we bring to our clients is knowing the pain points of that candidate, knowing their motivations for making a move, and then honestly catering everything you do from that point forward to address those pain points and issues. And I think, again, we talked about the shifting demographics. I'm blown away still when I see the number of offers that come out from construction firms. They're a one-page, one-paragraph document that says the job title and the salary of the employee. And I'm like, our job is to get that thing closed and to get that candidate on board,
Right.
and to accept the offer. But that's not giving us or the company very much ammunition to get the job done. And so as we look at candidates in today's market, they are looking for the full comprehensive package, and they're looking for it to align with their career aspirations and their desires for their work-life balance and all that. So yes, I mean, as Kyle said, it's hard to outline PM, estimator, superintendent. Here's the salary you should be offering. Here's the fringe benefits. But what I can say is, one, like, you do need it's a must to have a strong market appropriate base salary, and not a market appropriate, this is what we pay our other employees, or we know what we should be paying for this role. As a firm, we go out, we do salary studies. You can read them on Glassdoor, sure, but go out into the marketplace and take the temperature of folks who you feel are highly qualified for the positions that you're hiring for. That tells you the reality there of what you need to be offering. If that's not in line with what you're currently paying your employees, then maybe you have some deeper digging to do in terms of what, if you want to retain employees, you better figure that part out too, because you're 15 grand lower than the market is commanding right now for the same position. So strong market base salary. I think more and more we see that a clearly defined bonus or incentive package or structure is really critical. Again, I see a lot of, we pay discretionary bonuses or year-end bonuses, and we mostly pay. That's not enough anymore. Candidates want to know, when are they paid out? How are they paid out? What are the metrics that lead to achieving those bonuses and incentives? And they want it spelled out in their offer. They don't want any ambiguity on those points. Vehicle allowances are critical, or vehicles. Those are all things that are starting to become expectations. A clearly defined benefits package that's not just, here's our healthcare coverage. It needs to be, here's all the holidays we offer. Here's how we are flexible on time off and PTO and remote flexibility or whatever, all those things. So I would just say the more thorough, comprehensive, detailed that package can be, and the more catered to the specific candidate you're working with, the better odds you have.
You're saying like too many companies just say, hi, we're hiring for a superintendent, salary 60,000, and that's what you get to go in and negotiate, and you got to have more than that. That's
it. In this market, this doesn't sound like derogatory, but most of these positions, it's the same job at each company. It's not like some way different responsibility or role. You're doing the same thing, just in a different organization. So it becomes, how are you going to differentiate yourself as an employer and what you can offer? And it's just not simple. If you don't have any differentiators, like the thing that you need to spend your time on is figuring out what they're going to be, because you're going to struggle if you don't.
I interviewed someone yesterday that said that they placed a client, and he was making it was like 15 to 20,000 more in whatever construction role it was at his new employer. He wanted going back to the old employer because the new employer didn't have a really buckled down safety environment. He didn't feel safe. And so there was something that, not to say it didn't cost anything to have a safe environment, but just the impact of that sent him back. And it wasn't about money. It was about coming home to his family.
Yes.
So that seems like a real kind of, I don't want to say that's a non-monetary benefit because it's really a standard, but I mean, that was such an example for me of how that was number one.
There's a cost to everything, right? And you have to figure out where you're investing and the impact it's going to have. And some of those impacts don't, especially as you're dealing with staff and personnel and retaining staff and being a desirable place to work. Some of the value of that is intangible. You can't put a dollar figure on it. But when you're struggling to retain and you can't take on jobs and you can't fulfill the needs of the business, then suddenly it becomes very apparent that you need to change some things about your hiring and your pay structures and what you're offering to your employees.
And Kyle, that can't be a short-term fix. Like if a company realizes that beneath the iceberg, they've got real issues, that must be a tough client for you all to help. If structurally they've got stuff they have to fix.
Certainly tough to promote because by the time they may be realizing that, it could be too late. The reputation's out in the marketplace, which means everyone who's going to pick up their coffee at the morning at that gas station is talking about, oh, I have to go work for someone. The word spreads. And once you have that reputation, it can take years to recover from that, whether it's bad leadership, poor management, whatever the case may be. You want to stay ahead of that. So having a quarterly or even 6 month evaluation, speaking with your current employees, making sure they're satisfied, talking to maybe vendors out there. What are you hearing about us on the marketplace too? Because they might be great sources of information too. That's sometimes employees are scared to tell their boss the truth sometimes it may impact their employment. But just being aware of your brand, watch your Google reviews, watch things like that in the marketplace, Facebook comments if you're on there, whatever the case may be. Reputation management is key and part of this, again, retaining and attracting employees.
Oh my gosh, it's already 23 minutes in. We went 3 over, and I think everybody is grateful. I know I am for all that time. Anything in closing you guys would each like to add about maybe advice for contractors who are looking for the best people and maybe a competitive market? I think we already covered it, but any last thoughts, Peter, Kyle?
I would say, I mean, the only thing we didn't touch on a lot here is the new generation, Gen Z, coming into the workplace. And I think that having a career development, showing them the path when they are hired of what that's going to look like in 2-3 years and how they're going to get there, inclusive of training and mentorship, whatever the case may be, but showcasing a path that's going to take them from a day one employee to where they'll be 3 years in. And then leaning into that and sticking to your word. That's going to go very far with that they want to see that. It's not just a job with a title. It's what will it be? What's the future? What's the next step? What's the company investing in me in terms of training too, and advancing both my skill set and my career? So leaning into that early is going to reap the rewards later.
Pete, do you agree with that?
I do, I think. Yes.
You're Gen Z, aren't you?
I guess. We'll see.
I think we're millennials.
Oh, you were on video.
Yeah.
So I think really what it boils down to is honestly a willingness to look in the mirror as an organization and say, here's where we are, here's what's been successful in the past, but here's where we're struggling or have deficiencies now, and let's get creative to resolve these challenges and not just stick with this is how we've always done it. And I think that's a pretty universal business truth, but I think particularly in construction, because yes, things change, but they don't change necessarily as rapidly as some other industries. It's just critical to be able to retain and engage with high-level professionals.
We have been talking with Pete Wisnom, who is the Director of Recruiting, and Kyle Hullmann, who is the Director of Business Development with AllSearch Recruiting, about the challenges in construction recruiting. And I learned so much from you today, Pete and Kyle. Thank you so much for your time. I hope you'll come back on Build America again.
Had a lot of fun.
Appreciate
Thank you for
it.
having us, Kerry. We'd love to join again.